Blog Talk Radio.
Well, here we go, ladies and gentlemen, across the airways. It's a debut of the True North podcast. My brother in arms here, Billy North, running this thing with myself out here in Los Angeles. He happens to be in Seattle, 347-205-9631. This archive version will be found on blogtalkradio.com/Mancini Sports, podcast platforms, and wherever you subscribe to podcasts, powered now by Mancini Media. So as we wait for the manager of the Houston Astros, Dusty Baker, to get in here, let me lay the red carpet, put the podium in its place, and hand off the mic to Bill North. Billy, how you doing today?
I don't know what I just did, but I think we got Dusty on this line. Do we?
Dusty, are you there?
Wow. Anyway, thanks, guys, for listening in. I'm glad to be here amongst such illustrious companies as yourself and Mark. And this is our debut show, and I'm looking forward to it. We're trying to find our guest, Dusty Baker, and going from there.
Yeah, he'll be in. I have no doubt the good Lord puts good people in their path, and just let everybody know how this show is going to keep on going. I know you've lined up some great guests in Vida Blue. You got a Harlem Globetrotter coming. Let the listeners know what we can expect with this show moving forward.
Well, we're going to expect a lot of sports, but the subject can be anything that we come up with in our normal conversations. But it's the line that we use between Mark and I. We're in a crawl, walk, run phase, and right now we're crawling, but we have good things happening, and we have big plans to be exciting as a show, and we can't do anything without the callers and the listeners. And
well, as we wait for the manager of the Houston Astros, Dusty Baker, to jump in, as soon as we get the word he's coming, we'll pick it right up. I think he's coming in right now, so let me, as the phone line.
And I'm here.
Is this Dusty? How are you?
Good. I've been trying to get in, man.
Well, I'll tell you, when you're as popular as yourself, and you've done everything in the game of baseball, whether you're a player or a manager, the lines light up so much it's hard to find you.
Do you have me now? That is the question.
We have you loud and clear.
Oh,
what I
okay.
want to know is, do you have the toothpick in hand as we speak?
No, I don't have the toothpick in hand, but I'm telling you one thing. I'm glad my son is home because he saves me every time. You know what I mean? On this technical stuff, I am terrible.
God bless you, Billy.
Yeah, I want to introduce my friend, Dusty Baker. We go back, we have a friendship that goes back over 50 years. And I can't remember ever being mad at him. He probably been mad at me more than once. But we've had eventful life. He knows where the bodies are buried, but we decided we weren't going to talk about that. And so going forward, Baker.
Well, I'll tell you.
Hello?
Dusty,
yes, I'm here.
The show is sponsored by Buki Brand. They're giving a $500 gift certificate down the line here, so all you listeners that listen in. Joey Rodolfo sponsoring this thing, and we're just so blessed to have him. Dusty, the first question I like to ask you is, it's just simply amazing when I see your career in baseball, how it's transformed into manager, and the cities that you have been in, whether it's San Francisco, Chicago, Cincinnati, Washington, and Houston. You have carried that over, and you've made the transition so smooth. What's the secret formula, my friend?
Well, I don't know if there's a secret formula. I think most of it has to do with my training from my mother and father, and I've had a bunch of good coaches along the way. a tremendous amount of players along the way, professionally and amateur ball, and also the fact that I was in the Marines from '69 to '75. That really taught me teamwork and how to coexist in the workplace and get along with people no matter if you like them or they like you or not. But when you're in the Marines, you got a cause of if you had to go to wartime, the main cause is to win, but also to get home safely. And and you can't do that without cooperation of everybody on your team, which is similar to baseball. And so the only thing that's, when I look back on my career, is that I'm not that proud of managing 5 teams. When I first got the job in San Francisco, Al Rosen told me that managers are made to be fired, born to be fired. And I'm like, nah, not me. I'm a live and die, my whole career in San Francisco. And you always wonder, it's like, okay, you keep winning, you do this and you do that. And it's like, you start wondering, okay, is it because of this? Is it because of that? Or did I say something wrong? Or because, African Americans, which my mother told me about as a kid, are held to a higher standard, and you got to be twice as good to accomplish the same thing. And I was like, well, I'm not going to let anybody make me feel as if you don't win the whole thing, the whole championship, that you're a failure. And that's what I was construed, to be. But in my heart, just like when I got drafted, I was 25th round draft choice, but when in my heart, I always felt like a number one. So I just think that, my faith in God and my parents, the way they raised me, to be, to persevere,
right.
which I think is one of the key rules of life.
Exactly. And what you said about the Marines is, I can atone to that. My dad was a sergeant in there, and he always used to say, son, nobody cares what you know till they know how much you care, and the drive and the accountability, and stuff like that, getting up early and trying to outwork the competition, was a way of life that I was brought up with.
That's pretty good. I've never heard it put that way. I mean, is your dad still alive?
No, I lost him just before I got married 36 years ago. He died at 51, and I just turned 61 this past Monday, so God rest his soul up there. He's somewhere up there with my idol, Willie Stargell, and I know you played the game a long time.
Hey, let me tell you, that is so strange that you mentioned him, because let me tell you, he took care of me as a young player with the Braves and the Dodgers. He took care of me as good as anybody in the league. Him, Pete Rose, Joe Morgan, Billy Williams, all these guys would take care of the rookies. And, I rarely hear Willie Stargell's name mentioned, but he was one of the finest men that I've ever met in my entire life. And now I am so glad and so touched that you brought up Big Willie Stargell's name.
I love him dearly, just like I love you, and I love Billy North, because Billy North, I don't know, he was just amazing gentleman. I needed something off the bucket list. He said, Mancini, hold tight. I got an all-star ticket, and I got to see the all-star game this year. Now I'm looking for two things I got to get on my own: catch a foul ball and get to the World Series, and I've seen everything in baseball, and I'm so blessed.
Well, I tell you one thing, I'm going to try to prevent you from seeing the World Series, at least in Seattle. You know what I mean? But they got a good team. I mean, they got a good team, and then they got Teoscar. You're going to like him. I mean, you guys have made a couple moves in the pitching department and in the hitting department to make yourselves stronger. And, one of my guys that played for me, who was in the running for the manager of the year, I mean, I love Tito Francona. I played with his dad. Terry Francona. I played with Tito when I was a very young player with the Braves. But in my mind and in my heart, just like I told Scott Service last year, I thought he had my vote for manager of the year.
Yeah, and it's unbelievable when you look at the manager of the year. You were right there. I know you finished fourth. Brandon Hyde, the manager of the Orioles, boy, what a job he did this year. I thought he was going to edge Francona, but
going to be between. I thought it was going to be between those two guys. And the reason why I said Scott is because you guys hadn't been to the playoffs in 20 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And Brandon Hyde did a heck of a job. I didn't even know I finished fourth. You know what I mean? And, I finished fourth, I don't know, probably 10 times. But, it doesn't bother me. My team has to win. I thought
you got it.
I thought that I had a
Baker. I got a question to ask you.
Yeah.
And it has to do with the Monterey Pop Festival. I thought I'd just trying to chime in. I read a thing one time. Tell me about calm exhilaration that you saw in Jimi Hendrix, how he was and what he looked like. And compared
I
to
never forgot that. Yeah, I was 18 years old. And I had just turned 18. And I was at the Monterey Pop Festival. My mom gave me and my friend 2 tickets in the use of the Rambler station wagon and $20. And we slept in the car at the Monterey Pop Festival. That was my graduation present. My parents had just gotten divorced. My dad wouldn't have let me go, I'm sure. But, when I went there, yeah. And, Billy talked about calm exhilaration. I mean, this is what Jimmy was like playing a guitar. I mean, that and his music, he used to talk about how melodic his music was. And to me, that was similar to, hitting a home run where Hank Aaron taught us not to showboat. You know how guys now are showboating and flipping the bat. Hank Aaron had that calm exhilaration like Jimi Hendrix did. He laid the bat down. He ran around the bases like he had done this before, which he had a whole bunch of times. And then if he was going to smile or whatever, he'd go up in the tunnel and then come back down. And that he was exploding on the inside, but on the outside, he was totally calm most of the time.
Well, you know what, Dusty? Nothing seems to rattle you. You just even keel across the board. And when the Phillies took that 2-1 series lead, jumping out on you 7-0, I don't know what you did, but you must have made some adjustments because after that no-hitter, they couldn't seem to find their bats.
Well, something, it's not me, it's the pitching. Pitching stops good hitting. And then when a good hitting doesn't hit, everybody asks what's wrong. And, baseball's a daily game. We had gotten shellacked the day before with 5 home runs, and then we come back the next day, and then we have a pitching performance of our own of no-hit ball. And that's the beauty of baseball. I mean, you can't take one day to the next unless it was good the day before. And if it was bad the day before, you leave it there. And quite frankly, I've had to learn to be calm. Bill will tell you, man, I had a real bad temper, which I feel with that. I don't have a bad temper. I got a short fuse, a short temper. You know what I mean? And so, I had to make myself kind of, be nice on a lot of occasions because I got a guy inside me that I'm not too crazy about. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that guy most of the time is awakened by. Yes, and that guy is awakened by a phrase or somebody lied to you.
Somebody. Yeah, somebody. I could tell you stories about that. Baker, it seemed to me, Baker, that during this playoff, I've always maintained that in the postseason, the playoffs were more intense than the World Series because of the fact that the guys you're playing against, and that.
Correct.
But this postseason was really extremely intense, and it seemed to me that teams only scored in a few innings throughout it. What's that about?
Correct. Well, something, when you live and die, as modern baseball guys do, by the home run, it's like being a three-point shooting team. When you're not hitting threes, you're not scoring. But when you hit threes, then you end up scoring a whole bunch of points in a short period of time. And as you saw, most of the runs were scored in 1 or 2 innings of the ball game,
Right.
and Nowadays, you don't see 3 or 4 hits in a row. You know, the rally that used to be 3 or 4 hits in a row, first to third, tag up, first to third.
Yeah.
Now, a rally is a walk, maybe a base hit and a homer, or a walk and then a homer, and that's a rally by modern standards. That's why the walk has become so important, because don't get a lot of hits, and so the walk
and hitters are striking out much more often, and that launch angle has become such a factor.
Right.
But how would you?
And the kids come in, and Bill, the kids come in. You know, they're taught that from the time they're kids. And, you know, like if we had to use a launch angle, we wouldn't have never made it to the big leagues, because we weren't strong enough to hit that ball out of the ballpark. We were just trying to get some hits, get on base, and use what God gave us, our speed.
Along with the fact that 2 strikes we would give in and want to put the ball in play. Strikeout is just another out to them now.
Right.
Yeah, and I see it was a sin to strike out. I'm not kidding you. I mean, me and my brother used to play strikeout against I learned how not to strike out because we played strikeout against the garage with a dirty tennis ball and right at dust. and like whoever struck out had to throw to the other guy. Well, my brother wouldn't strike out for a week. I swear, man, my arm would get sore trying to strike my brother out.
And not only that, you know, when you look at that, Dusty, what Bill had brought up, you know, the playoffs and everything, pretty much 3 hostile environments: Seattle, New York, where they probably start, you know, at 2 a.m. and continue through the night, and then Philadelphia. I mean, 3 cities where those fan bases were just in your ear. Do you need the earplugs in them hostile environments? How do you cope with that in those 3 different cities?
Oh, actually, I
get
mean,
used to it.
You get, like Bill said, you have to feed off of it. And you know something, it wasn't that hostile in Seattle, you know, to me. New York was a lot less hostile than it had been, because we had been to New York. You know, we had been to New York a couple times already, and we had been to. You figure we go to Seattle 3 times a year, so there's 6 times, and a couple times a year before. So, you know, a lot of that was just exhilaration from their team being in the playoffs for the first time in Seattle. But Philly, we hadn't been. But in Philly, it was a long time since we had went there, and the scandal wasn't even there. I mean, a lot of my guys had never been to Philadelphia ever. You know, because the interleague play, we didn't play them.
Right.
Yeah.
And not only that,
the fact that there were a lot of corporate fans there. You know, the regular fans don't get to go to that big ticket game there.
Big point. Because during the season, Billy will tell you, during the season, we see the
go to
the
New
fans
York?
that are there. Yeah, you know, the fans that are there have their boss's tickets or have somebody else's tickets, and then come to playoffs, then the bosses want their tickets, and like you said, it's a corporate. Honest truth, man, there are more corporate fans than there are fans that show every day. You know.
Well, and not only that, when you know Dusty and Billy, when you look at the Houston Astros, I don't know if anybody's ever brought this up. I kind of look at you guys kind of built the way the New England Patriots are built. You can lose guys. You lose a Springer, you lose a Correa, you lose a Cole, you lose these guys, but it just keeps – there's not rebuilding in Houston. There's retooling. And as long as you're running the ship there, the Altuves, the Bregmans, the Verlanders, everybody knows their role and they're leaders as well as you. Am I right?
Correct. I mean, through that, you're very, very correct. But you also got to remember that our owner, the owner of the club, who was All-American pitcher, Division II, I'm serious, and in Missouri, he hates to lose, and so I mean, he's one of the best. He is the best owner that I, managed for, and he Jim Crane does not believe in retooling. He believes in refueling. you know, and I mean, it's true. And, you know, you find a way. You know, you get some guys from your organization, get some young players, you groom them, you fill in the blanks with a couple of free agents possibly. And, you know, I mean, we didn't know how we were going to do, especially when you lose Springer and you lose, you know, Garrett Cole. I mean, there's some serious guys that we have lost, but, you know, we're fortunate enough that Jeremy Peñas took Carlos Correa's place. You know, we had Framber Valdez took Garrett Cole's place. You know, we got Javier. I mean, this is how you build an organization and sustain excellence for a period of time.
You know, I always tell Billy, the 70s, you know, 61 now, I always say when I look at the 6 decades of baseball, I love the 70s. You had the Red Machine. You had Bill North's Oakland A's. There were some, you know, the Hank Aaron's across the board here and everything. Yeah. When you look at baseball today, how much has it changed? I know there's, you know, you can't go to first now, otherwise the guy's going to get awarded second. We've got the guy at second base, and you know, we shortened up the no-hitters in the pandemic and stuff. What's your take on as the game changed in your mind? Because I think the 70s were simply amazing, and maybe I'm being a little biased with my Pittsburgh Pirates here.
Well, you know, it was always a beautiful game, and it still is. You know, it's a slower game now. You know, because I think because of the strikeouts, because of home runs, and because the overall lack of minorities, it's a slower game.
Right.
And a lot of people probably won't like to hear that, but I've seen the transition, you know, where stealing's less important, hit and run is less important, defense is less important, throwing, most outfielders, if you played the outfield before and couldn't throw, you weren't going to play in the big leagues. You know what I mean? So, but, you know, the game has changed. I think it's changing back possibly for the better because the fans like a more exciting baseball. That's why they're trying to speed up the game. That's why they're trying to make the bases bigger to steal. You know, there's a number of things because we're losing the young people. You know, where you lose.
Right.
You know, a lot of these guys say baseball's boring, but until you get into baseball and understand what's going on in baseball, you know, it can be boring. But it's not boring to me because I see the idiosyncrasies of the game within the game.
Well, you're a lot closer to it.
Correct.
And you also know, in that situation, it always amazes me when somebody manages for you from the stands, because a lot of it is you don't know from the stands. You don't know all of the intricacies, the caveat, the things that are happening in the locker room, or how this guy is feeling, or what this is about, because that's not publicized. And there's so many things going on inside of the locker room that have effect on how you manage your game. And Billy, also, it's a matter of like I said, it's a daily game. You don't know whose mom is sick, whose wife is sick,
right,
whose dog just died.
Exactly.
I mean, these guys have the same problems. It's a microcosm of society. These guys have the same problems as people in society have. A lot of people think, oh yeah, they're making a lot of money, but guess what? The problems are the same. And for that casual fan that goes to the game once or twice a year, he might catch you on that day, but you still. That's why I admire these guys in baseball. But you still have to have the desire and the feeling that casual fan that never seen you play before. And I remember Steve Garvey, when I played with Steve Garvey. I asked Garvey, he used to get migraines all the time. And I asked him, man, how are you doing this? And he told me that he would play for that sick kid or the grandma that was sick or somebody that just lost somebody in their family. And that gave me a better perspective on how to go at the game at a daily basis.
Well, and along with the fact, too, Baker, along with the fact too that when you've been going out there on that field and you've been playing so long that it gets to be kind of a sanctuary from to get away from some of the negative things that are happening, and that
in life.
I found that when I got out there, I forgot about what I'm going to do with the car or to plumbing and that kind of thing.
Billy, that's a great point, because Pete Rose was the first one that turned me on to that, because I used to take kind of my problems to the ball field, you know what I mean, and you could tell by my performance. And I was on first base one time when Pete Rose had just I think him and his wife had just broken up. His dad had just died, and something else had happened, and he was right in the middle of a 44-game hit streak. He had 22 games. And I asked Pete, I said, man, and, it was well publicized, the problems that he was having. And I asked him, I said, man, how are you doing this? And I use this to this day. And Pete told me, and you're the second person I've heard say that, Billy, that he used that as a sanctuary away from his problems, because whatever problems you have, the problems are there when you get home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, but that takes a strong individual, a strong person, and also a person that has love for the game, to be able to separate those two.
We got 3 minutes.
But sorry. It's a thing though that we've gone to that place with the dirt on it throughout our lives.
Correct.
And generally when we go there, it's kind of, there's not a lot. You don't take things with you. You just go to play the game, and I think it gets to be part of you, because certainly when you come out of the game, you miss it. But Billy, I still have dreams about spring training right now.
But Billy, everybody can't do that. I'm telling you, everybody cannot separate the field from the field. I mean, the greats can, the strong-minded guys can, but there are a lot of guys that there's still a few guys that I have to coax through or coach through the situation. And as a manager, I have to recognize the character and personality changes, and like a guy who talks a lot and all of a sudden he's not talking, or a guy that doesn't talk at all and all of a sudden he is talking. You know what I mean? I'm like, come on, dude, something's happening. And that's where a manager or a coach.
That's where a good
really
manager
comes in.
A good manager, some don't care, but it's the kind of thing that I was always told. A good manager finds out how to get 100% from his players, and there's three types of players. Players you pet, players you spank, and players you leave alone. And a good manager has to find out which is which.
Well,
Billy, I was all three at some point in my career, you know what I mean?
I
know you gotta go.
We got about a minute. Real fast, Dusty and Billy with
Bulldogs from Garfield High.
Yeah,
right.
Real fast, in less than we got about a minute. In about 30 seconds, Dusty, tell the listeners, because we are just simply loaded on this show. We're just so blessed and honored to have you come on the debut of the True North with Billy North here. What Hank Aaron meant to you?
Well, Hank was like my father away from home, and he promised my mother that he would take care of me as if I was his son. And if I signed with the Braves, I was supposed to go to college to play basketball or football. I had no baseball scholarships, but the Braves took a chance drafting me. And Hank told me that if I had enough confidence in myself to be in the big leagues by the time my class would have graduated from college, that to sign, and if not, then go to school. But he promised my mom he'd make me go to church. He'd make me not hang out late with the clubs and so all the things that you think a 18 to 21-year-old away from home. I'm grown now. You know that famous "I'm grown now, I do what I want," but you still better have something. Yeah, and he was my mentor and my conscience, and my father, my uncle, like my brother, he was, my uncle was more Orlando Cepeda. Now that, he was my uncle,
Right.
That uncle that you can tell anything to, but you can't tell anything to your dad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was very fortunate to have, such great people around.
Well, we
And
definitely
Billy
got to get
Williams
you back.
And Tommy Davis. Yeah. And
Yeah.
myself.
And TD was my hero. Yep.
We got to get Dusty back. I know this thing will be tremendous across the board. I'm so blessed you got the World Series and got that on your mantle. But you know what, Billy? He gave us a little insight on something playing basketball. I think the Lakers can use some help. Dusty, can you be a Deion Sanders here?
No, but Elgin Baylor was my hero, man. My dad.
I know.
What's wrong with your head, boy? I said, "What you mean, Dad?" He goes, "Why are you bobbing your head up and down?" He goes, I said, "Dad, I'm yo-yoing up and down the key." He said, "No, you ain't Elgin Baylor."
I'm telling you, same thing. He went to school a block and a half from my house, and I used to go over there and watch him practice all the time.
What a player, man! He was my favorite player.
Wow.
He was Dr. J before Dr. J and before Michael Jordan.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I do a show with an XM guy, Fred Wallen. That was his favorite player too. Man, oh man, give me Magic Johnson. But everybody's got their hero. Yeah, and I remember when he went to Philly and 40. God, we could talk for hours. We should expand this thing to an hour.
Right.
Dusty, you got to come back. We love you dearly.
I'll be back.
I'm glad you got the World Series. Yeah, Billy, any final comments as we wrap this up?
Hey, Baker, thank you so much. I love you.
Yep.
And I'll talk to
you
you a little later.
We'll be talking.
And I want to shout out. Excuse me.
Thank you very much for. Yeah, but see,
I want to shout out to Garfield Bulldogs again, class of '66.
Right.
Those are my people.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, guys, for Billy North, for Dusty Baker, yours truly, Mark Mancini in Los Angeles. Stay tuned next week when Vida Blue comes through the show on the True North podcast. Till then, have a blessed one, guys. I love you dearly. And thank you very much for listening.
Thank you all.